Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Parkinsons with Geoff. I can't even say my own name. It's a good start. And as promised in episode 8, we do have a guest speaker, so you don't have to listen to me drone on endlessly. And we have Coach Carly here with us to talk about primal movement, which, for those of you that have been paying attention, you'll see that that's popped up on the website, and a link to the Primal movement website, specifically Coach Carly's website. And we're going to talk about why I think this is something that you might want to consider with your Parkinson's motor skills therapies. Again, disclaimers I do for every episode. This is not medical advice. This is just me giving you my personal experience, nothing more, nothing less. And remember the other golden rules, people. No religion, politics, sports, or swearing will be allowed. I will come to your home and disqualify you personally. Okay, so moving right along, we have Carly Owens with us. Her organization is called Coach Carly. And what Carly does is coach people on primal movement, which I will not do a very good job of explaining. I think I tried to previously. It's basically getting back to walking and moving generally with a couple of key concepts in mind. One, let's think about it for a moment. How much have we changed our lifestyle in the relation to the way our body was designed to move? The answer to that is, for most people, a lot. Partly, as an example, a lot of us aren't moving a lot of the time like we always used to be. That's what we're designed to do. So I saw a demo lesson by Carly at my jiu-jitsu class and thought that would be something very interesting for those looking for help with, or more importantly, just as importantly at least, preventative therapies. Because remember, when we're talking and we're speaking, we're doing that with intent now, right, everyone? We're bypassing the back part of the automatic side of your brain to the front side, making it with intent. And we're going to go down exactly the same path with Carly. So at this point, I'll hand over to her and let her talk to you about what primal movement actually is, and also give you a bit of background on herself. Over to you, Carly.
Thank you, Geoff. Yes, thank you so much. I've really been enjoying our conversations around movement. I am what I call myself a movement coach at this point. I started off in a athletic and fitness background, but what I've learned and gathered over the last few years has really changed my perspective entirely on how I approach training, or my hobbies, my activities, and my passion for movement. So, myself and the team that I work with, we now teach other people how to move naturally again, and we call it primal movement. You can think of primal, a lot of times when people hear the term primal, they maybe think of animal flow, or maybe you've seen some supplements with nutrition that have the word primal on there. We kind of like to think of primal as primary, foundational, essential movements of the human body, things that we innately are all born with. We as children taught ourselves to move very innately. And a lot of times as we get older, we start to lose that ability, that skill set to move naturally and freely in our body as we did in our youth. So essentially at this point, I help my clients that I work with, whether they're young athletes, older populations, my grandma, my friends, my family, all ages, all ranges, whether you're athletic or not. It really comes down to reconnecting with that most basic, fundamental movement pattern of the human body, which is to move forward through time and space. And like you said at the beginning, to walk. So everything I teach people surrounds our ability to locomote throughout our life. And I really do believe that fundamentally the human body is resilient and is designed to heal itself with proper intentional movement patterns. So that's kind of just it's very general right now, but I'm sure we'll get into the specifics of what I teach people. But it's been very fulfilling and really empowering to really learn more about this beautiful way that we're born to move.
That's great. That's inspiring, in fact. So when I saw you giving the demo lesson at the jiu-jitsu class, and a little plug, I'm allowed to do it because it's my show, everybody, for Vinci Jiu-Jitsu here in the Atlantic. Great guys, great school. So when I saw you do that demo lesson, and I couldn't stick around for all of it, but I was very interested in it and thought that is good information for the demographic that I'm trying to just touch base with. And the first part of your lesson was a bit of warm-up, and then you got into walking, which until you even mentioned it, yeah, I just take it for granted, like breathing, you know, and meditating is an intentful act. Breathing is automatic, or at least we hope it is. Some people it isn't. But walking, just within 10, 15 minutes, some of the points that you had about, first of all, your posture. I feel like you're judging my posture right now, but probably,
I'm judging mine too. No.
Probably with good cause. And so your posture, and also the way you walked, and there are subtle things in there that I would never have thought about, and there were a couple of key things that really stuck with me, and my listener base, of course, knows that I have silly humor, and for those of them that know me well, they know I was silly well before I had Parkinson's. But anyway, they also know I like to introduce concepts that not everyone has open ears to. But one of the things, in addition to positioning of the feet and the actual motor movement forward of the feet in a way that gives good supports good posture, good balance, and good use of all the power that your body has. And where does energy come from to make that power? Well, with me, it comes from eating a family-sized box of Oreos in one go, which isn't the best place. But it also comes from other sources all around us, including the energy that's in the earth. And that was a piece of the walking technique that Carly was showing at that point. Introduced at the end that if you position your feet properly and you do the whole movement with intent, and it does become natural. Because if you look at the way Kai just walks naturally versus the way I Neanderthal my way through the sidewalk, entirely different. And but that you introduce the concept of, if you get this right, you'll also be able to feel and get some of that energy that is beneath us. I mean, the whole planet's a mass of electrons, magnetism. It makes sense. It's there. That doesn't have to be proven, but some people don't necessarily want to go down the path of listening to that. But anyway, it wasn't the biggest part of what you were teaching, but it was another subtlety. And I tried it that weekend. And I'm sure I felt a little bit different. So talk to us about walking, specifically the way it's evolved into the wrong way for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it comes down to what you touched upon at the beginning. A majority of us in our modern climate are moving far less and far less naturally than we ever have before. I think there's a lot of conveniences in our life, which I'm very grateful for, because we can sit down and we can record a podcast online, and we have phones to connect us. And it's amazing that we have cars to drive us around and air conditioning to keep us cool, especially out here in Florida. But we have to recognize that those conveniences are actually killing our movement pattern. They're taking away from our movement efficiency. They're causing us to compress quite a bit. And I can see a lot of that compression simply by how I observe people walk forward. So when I'm looking at someone walk, I kind of do a virtual scan from the ground all the way up, and I can assess someone's movement pattern and really tell. It's almost like a secret superpower. I can see a lot by what you're feeling in your body, for better or worse, simply by watching and observing how you are absorbing impact from the ground, how you are transferring energy from one side of the body when you take a step to the other. And it's you can really gather a lot of information in that and see how someone uses their muscles or uses their joints and their tendons and ligaments and all these amazing things that make up our entire ability to walk forward. That's so incredible that we as humans can stand upright and move through space. It's really an incredible thing. So when I'm talking to someone and bringing awareness to their system to try to move a little bit more efficiently and feel like you can float across the ground when you're walking, I do like to start with a few key pieces. Number one, the feet. The feet are super important. I like to use a lot of analogies too, just to kind of wrap. You've probably heard some of those in our, and especially virtually when someone's listening to this, maybe you can kind of close your eyes and just picture this. But basically your feet to me are like the tires of a car or the tires in a bicycle. We can only drive around on inflated tires or ride around on inflated tires. Maybe we have a flat tire, but eventually that car is going to come to a stop. Like, you can only drive around for so long until everything upstream from that gets affected. So our feet are very much like the same way, like the tires in our car. Or another way you can think about our feet are the foundation of a house. We need a strong foundation. We need a strong structure, or we can't really build a strong structure on a faulty foundation. So your feet need to be ready to support everything upstream, everything above. There's 29 muscles in the feet. I know we were talking about that earlier. 29 muscles, over 200,000 nerve endings, I think 33 joints, lots of ligaments. I mean, there's so much in the feet that just gets neglected because we put them into shoes. I call them foot prisons. We start to shove our feet into shoes. We rarely are barefoot anymore. So we lose a lot of that connection to the earth. So you can really start to bring intention into your posture when you're brushing your teeth, when you're walking around. You can bring attention and intention into your feet just simply by noticing the pressure of your foot and the orientation of your foot. So what I like to start with people is basically you can set yourself up for a lot more success and strong movement simply by thinking about pointing your feet forward. We are meant to walk forward throughout our life. I feel like that's why our eyes are on the front of our face, our ear, everything is pulling us and calling us forward. Maybe we back up a little bit. Maybe we reverse down the driveway, but we don't drive down the highway. If we stick with the car analogy, we're not driving down the highway in reverse. So pointing your toes
they
forward.
do in New Jersey.
Oh, do they?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that sounds...
No. And ambulances run out of gas.
Oh, man, it sounds...
Sorry, that just popped into my head. But the audience is used to that.
Yeah, that sounds very hectic and very chaotic. Yeah. And that could be very chaotic for your body, too. So we want our feet to be facing forward because that's going to allow you to move forward with much more efficiency. So I like to think of my big toe as having a giant laser beam pointing forward. Just think laser beams from here on out. When you're brushing your teeth, look down. Are my toes pointing forward? If they start to drift east and west, we might start to have some compensation and some compression happening upstream. So laser beams pointing forward. I really like to think about my arches. Just imagine a beautiful archway, the Golden Gate Bridge, like a bridge in your foot. We need that arch to be there to support our springs of our feet. So if we start to have flat feet, okay, how can I get my arches to pull myself back up into a very supported stance? And then lastly, I would say The heels. The heels are there for resting, but if we get really heel heavy, we can kind of think of it as putting on the brakes if we're walking. So if we start to feel very heel heavy and pounding, my dad knows. I like to joke too with my dad. You'll hear him coming down the hall on our hardwood floors because he is using his heels quite a bit, not as soft as if he was softly gliding across the ground. So just starting to even think about your feet in those different ways, like how it sounds when you take a step, how it feels when you take a step, what surfaces feel like. It's really, really cool to find that connection again, because it also just sets the stage for everything else that happens when you carry your structure forward. So that's a little bit about the feet. If you can start to think about your feet mimicking your hands, do your feet grab and pull and press anymore? Just even having a conversation with your feet when you're, sitting down to watch a movie, maybe just flex your toes a little bit, pull them up, make fists with your feet. Because sometimes I just feel like we just don't really think about them anymore because they're so far away from our eyes. So feet are very important, and you can really start to bring yourself back into quality movement by thinking about them a little bit more often.
Yeah, that's great. That
was a long tangent.
No, that was right on point. Thank you. I mean, again, that's what I noticed. There are so many subtle things that I certainly don't think about. And even then, you reminded me, because my memory is awful, of course, the laser beams. That's the simplest way to remember. Just the laser beam needs to go forward, and if it starts pointing off either side, then it's not a good thing. And that's why I thought it'd be good for the audience, because we have to do things with intent. We have to swallow with intent. We really have to develop new neural networks, because with the disease, they erode. That's just the nature of the beast. So we have to develop new ones and do a lot of bypassing of the rear part of the brain with the where the pons are attached. And that's found to be effective. And that all comes into the big umbrella of doing things with intent, with consciousness.
Yes.
Which is exactly what you just described, except you had the subtleties of, in this case, we're talking about feet and movement, walking rather. So I thought that was extremely relevant. Now, remember, for all listeners, some of you are perhaps, you're not very motor impaired at the moment, which is good. Perhaps some of you are just, not just, but you're caregivers, you don't have the disease. So everything that Carly is talking about is relevant to anyone at any stage. The idea is, in fact, when I think a lot of, and Carly's going to talk about her clientele a little bit, just to give you some examples, but, they're not usually suffering from some type of medical condition, but it could be pain. I was surprised to hear her say that she's working with a lot of young children, teens, preteens even, that have got various pains in joints and things that, the medical approach is, okay, that's a symptom, we'll treat the symptom, as opposed to the cause, which is a lot of the time it's because they're either sedentary or they're just not moving the way they're designed to. Just like people no longer thinking the way that we were enabled to do. So it's kind of the same thing. So we talked about walking, and another thing, and I mentioned this to you when we were chatting, with Parkinson's, a lot of us, and certainly mine does it sometimes until I become aware of it, but when we walk, our arms, one or both of our arms, may not be swinging, which is typical. Everyone, it's just natural that the arms swing. It should be natural, but our neural pathways seem to be affected for that particular thing as well. And of course, sometimes you have the trembles. But what do you tell people about swinging their arms when they're walking?
It's funny. I actually just thought of this too after our conversation. I remember when I was a kid, my parents used to give me the nickname, and some friends too, of Mowgli from the Jungle Book, because when I would walk and hike downhill, would naturally be so free in my body. My arms would swing very freely. And I think just going back to, this freedom that we had as children, then oftentimes, whether it is because a medical condition that we're talking about right now, or like you mentioned in my other clients, just the conveniences of life that are taking away from the quality of their movement. So they're experiencing things like tightness, compression, low back pain being the number one, actually outside of a medical condition, low back pain being the number one disability right now in America.
Is it really?
Non-specific low chronic back pain, and they do not have a specific reason. That it's non-specific, so nobody quote knows why. But you start to look at how people are presenting themselves and moving, you can really see a lot of that. So even when I think about things like the arms swinging and freely, I think about the shoulder in connection to the hip, and they move very similar. So going up from the feet, the hips are another big focal point I really bring to people's attention and intention into their walk, into their stance. And that affects all the way upstream into your shoulder movement as well. It's very connected. I feel like the whole chain is very connected. And as you mentioned, a lot of times we maybe segment or try to find the one spot to treat, and then we miss the root cause, or maybe the cause is coming from down below. So arm swing is very natural if you're using your feet and hips and spine properly. And a lot of times we get very rigid. We stop moving. We become very robotic and stiff. We brace quite a bit. So finding that nice natural side bend can really help the shoulders open up quite a bit. And I feel like also opening up the hips can open up the shoulders to just feel very free.
So there, obviously you can't see this, but you did kind of a rotation from your hips upwards when you said that. So that's what you mean. Like it's the swing should help you rotate a little bit, or
there are some people that I know that coach. Actually, sometimes they'll skip the feet and hip connection, and they will just go straight up to the upper body because they feel like that drives locomotion. So this big energy wave, essentially, if you can kind of think of this nice wave from the ground up, almost as if when I'm walking forward. See if I can find a good cue for this that you could grasp if you're listening. It's almost like when I move, if I'm free in my shoulders, my nose would land over my toes, or my head would shift over my landing leg. And that just kind of shows that I'm free in my shoulders to swing and to move. So there is rotation happening from the ankle up to the hip, into all the way through the spine and shoulders. And it is very freeing. And there are some really great movements that we do in Primal movement, depending on what I see when you walk. Whatever the lowest hanging fruit is, I'll kind of tackle that. So sometimes, even if I see somebody stiff in their upper body, I scan down and it goes back to the foot. And then I go to the hips, and then I'll open up the arm movement with things like tummy time. Again, going back to child development, that's a very basic way that we learn to develop mobility and strength as a child, was on the ground in this tummy time Superman position.
Okay.
A lot of great arm reaches and movements there. Then you can build up and do some great things with arm circling and elbow movements and just reaching, maybe some good pull work, very subtle things. But at the end of the day, it all goes back to that intention. Why are we doing this? What do I feel when I do this? And how does this translate to my walk? So it's really taking that form piece that we do focus on a lot of times in a classic gym setting, but truly in your day-to-day movement. I'm thinking about that arm swing when I'm reaching up to grab something from a shelf. I'm thinking about my shoulder mobility when I'm even tying my shoes, like how I'm reaching to tie my shoes. So we're thinking about it from this walking component, but actually there's just so many little micro movements in your day-to-day that I bring this intention to, and it's just constant. It can be annoying, but it's really powerful.
But that's an important point, because what you're talking about is you're not going to the gym and doing a specific amount of time of work. No, this is every time you walk, you're going to be doing it this way, and over time you'll get better at it.
Mm-hmm.
Really, meaning we'll return back
Mm-hmm.
to the way we were designed to move.
Absolutely.
However many thousands of years ago that was.
Right.
But yeah, when I heard you say that you're seeing 10, 11-year-olds with chronic pain, yeah, it did shock me.
It is, the numbers on that, it's heartbreaking, and it's why I'm so passionate about what I do, because I feel like I want to help advocate for people and their bodies, because it's to lose your movement is to lose your quality of life, as you know, with this disease or this condition. You know, when that's taken away, you're taking away freedom. And so to preserve that as much as you can, even if it's just with the most simple things, is really empowering to people. And yeah, it's crazy to see the numbers of. It's just very interesting if you start going into down the rabbit hole and looking at the amount of gyms that are available, the amount of PTs, the amount of chiropractors, the amount of physical therapists. I find that those are all great supplements, and they can be really great accelerators of recovery, or, you know, reclaiming that foundation. But a lot of times they become band-aids, and we go right back into our inefficient habits. Our old habits, our old patterns. So it does take, that's like a lot of the stuff that I do, very similar to what you're doing with your work here, talking about Parkinson's. It's awareness first. It's a lot of awareness, and then intention. And sometimes you have to feel it and be guided through, like with a coach. But then once you feel it, it's very empowering, and you can start to integrate that into so many things that you're doing in your day-to-day life. And like with walking simply,
every time you move.
Every single time.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Making yourself move.
Yeah. And then you get excited. I know sometimes it can be really hard to find motivation to want to move when you're feeling disconnected from your body or in pain. But when you start to feel those little victories and you start to have those epiphanies, like, oh my gosh, my hip just opened in a way that I haven't felt before. Or I know for me, I had chronic hip pain, and I was stronger than I had ever been, but I wasn't moving well, and I wasn't actually using my hips as they were designed to. Once we call it a recoding, rewiring, essentially. Once I reclaimed that ability, it just blew the door open on my potential. And it was so exciting. And then I found myself wanting to go for more walks, wanting to spend more time stretching on the ground. You know, we talked a little bit too about your the bird dog movements. I call that a lot of that lengthening decompression, like really giving space in the spine, or different areas of the body. But once you start to feel that, and it doesn't take a lot, it's just a little bit, and then that makes everything else you do that much exciting, or that feel that much better. You want to return to it more often. So it just becomes this waterfall of movement and freedom.
Right. Yeah, and that's where we get into the less tangible side. Is, you know, if your body is moving like it should, if it's opened up the way it should be, it not only reduces pain and inflammation, but also allows energy to flow. Of course, otherwise it's like having a crimped wire and a bundle, right?
Exactly. Yes.
To me, even as a technical person, it makes sense, because it's energy movement. And if energy is constricted, it's still there.
Yes.
If it's blocked, it's going to be energy still. It's just, how does it manifest?
Yes.
So, of course, a lot of times it manifests as pain.
Yes, that's the classic energy. Well, two things that come up. Energy flows on the path of least resistance, and energy is neither created nor destroyed. So it has to go somewhere. And I find that for most people, if they are not experiencing a medical condition, of course, if they are experiencing pain, nowadays I welcome that and I recognize that as a signal that my body's trying to talk to me and tell me something. It becomes this open line of communication of, okay, I hear you, body. I'm not going to ignore the pain signal. I need to figure out, where is that coming from? Why am I feeling this? What am I doing in my day-to-day life that's contributing to this? And can I make an adjustment? So it just, at the end of the day, all becomes very empowering, really, really empowering to be able to communicate openly with your body. It's
being back this whole holistic approach.
Yes.
Again, this is, I won't say it's common sense. It kind of should be, but it isn't. But it makes sense regardless of whether you have a condition or not. This is just a healthier way of living, as is a majority of the simple stuff that I put on the little PDF that people can download from the website free. Again, it's not medical advice, it's just what works or doesn't work for me. So yeah, and we're starting to get to the end of the half hour. Actually, we're there, but just and we'll probably have to have you come back, I would think, if you wouldn't mind. But tell us a bit about how your class actually works, because when we were talking, I assumed most classes would actually be in person. You said, no, actually, more are on Zoom than they are in person, which I try to imagine how that will work when I remember, the class you were giving at the school here. So,
right.
How does that work?
One of the benefits of convenience is that we do have technology, and Zoom has become such a prominent piece in the world. I mean, especially after those 2 years that we had locked in, everyone has access. Most people I wouldn't say everyone, but most people have access to an online space. So I am able to now, with really quality cueing, because I've worked with so many people, I've been able to dial in how I work with people and the cues that I give to build up that kinesthetic awareness even across a screen. So I work with people a few different ways. I do love being in person because it's just such a great way to connect and you can get hands-on feel. But myself and my Primal movement coaches are now, which is really fun to say, international. There's coaches I work with in Honduras, Spain, French, German now, and our most recent one was in Czech Republic, which is really cool. So all of us are virtual. So we do have a few options for coaching and learning how to move your body and reclaiming these things, even if you're not able to meet in person. We have online courses available where you can download videos that you are being guided through in a follow along setting. Okay. So you just plug us into your TV and you can listen and be guided. It does take a little bit more of that kinesthetic awareness and can be a little challenging. So I do recommend obviously working with a coach just to push the needle a little bit farther. When I work with someone online, all they need is, some people do get to the point where they're taking me to a gym space because they want to use a bigger space to...
Taking on their phone, you mean?
Yeah, they're integrating into more advanced work, like crawling or pushing a sled or all these things.
Right.
But you don't need a lot of space. Yoga mat, maybe some carpet, a little... it really could be the space of a yoga mat. It does not take a lot. And so when I'm working with someone, I start with, no matter what, that assessment piece. So you're filming yourself and you're sending me video so I can look at how you move. And that way I can give you some really great slow motion video breakdown of how you move.
Oh, okay.
It's really fun to deepen that understanding.
Yeah.
It can be a little hard to watch ourselves in slow motion, but it's so powerful. You can see so much happening in slow motion. Then we move together. I talk about that awareness kind of like we're talking now, and then you get to feel it. So I guide you through some foot drills. You're feeling and experiencing your feet move, probably in ways that maybe it's been a while that you haven't felt in a long time. You're feeling your joints articulate. You're feeling nerves moving, your fascia, your tissues. Then I build you up into a really strong base and how to use your body on the ground. I do a lot of groundwork. I teach you how to use the back of your body through specific drills that teach you not just how to do a basic exercise for exercise sake, but for a purpose. We're going to do something called rocking. You did this as a child. It's very soothing, also for your nervous system. Maybe for those days that you're not feeling like you have the motivation to move a lot or go for a walk, the ground is very healing. And it's a safe place. And so sometimes we're turning to the ground, just in general, that grounding practice, talking about energy transfer. You and I both talked about being close to the beach. I go put my knees in the ground and crawl on the ground almost every single day because the sand just feels so rejuvenating. It's amazing. And then you get into your hips. So it's basically combining strength and mobility on the ground first, opening up the shoulders, working with your hands. And then we build that to standing. And all of that work eventually translates into a beautiful, efficient walk. And at the end of the day, if you know how to walk, you can do anything.
Yeah.
I can go do jiu-jitsu. with you. I can go play soccer. I can feel comfortable when I'm resting at home. I spend a lot of time on the ground. So it's teaching people through a screen, but because I'm able to cue really well, you get to feel that in your body fast. I have no doubt about it. So there's just some little tricks, but it just gets you back into being very kinesthetically aware of your body. And sometimes people shake. Sometimes, your tissues, that nervous system piece, especially if it's something that you had told me about, practicing swallowing.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically taking that practice into other areas of your body, that
Right.
intentional piece.
Right.
And then you get to feel free when you go play out in the world with those things.
Yeah.
So it's fun. It's fun to be able to do that virtually with people because now I feel lucky to connect with people from many different places and spaces and backgrounds.
Yeah, and that was the thing that surprised me. The percentage of your classes that you'd actually do online.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Well, I am sure we'll have you back for another episode if you're willing.
I'd love to.
Yeah, we're running over the half hour now, and well, normally everyone's asleep by 20 minutes if it's just me talking anyway. But so thank you very much, Carly. Really appreciate your time. A fantastic few lessons that I got out of talking to you again today. Always learning something new. That's great. And again, for the listeners, if you go to the parkinsonswithgeoff.com website, you'll see Coach Carly's website linked there. She has an Instagram, and I'll put these addresses in the show notes as well for you, so you can go and check the website out. And also, I think is it the Primal Movement Foundation organization?
It is primalmovement.org.
That's the one in the US that is kind of the main body, if you will.
Yeah, myself and two other coaches have come together to collaborate on that, and we've just been continuing to build that organization, I guess you could say, or movement space for people to connect with, to find coaches in your area.
Right.
We're certifying people now, which is also just really incredible. I'm very grateful. And I'm grateful for people like you who are open to having a conversation about something so simple, but so powerful. And it's changed my life. And I'm very passionate and love sharing.
Well,
so
I can tell you you always have a lot of energy.
Yes.
So something's working, and you haven't even eaten today. You're fasting today.
A little fasting reset.
And I feel bad because I ate lunch in front of you. But yeah, anyway. So thanks again, Carly. Really appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Please take care of yourself. Hug a stranger, or at least shake hands, or at least say hello. Smile, and take care of each other, okay? And we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.